I'm a psychiatrist, 27 years of practice, 2,000 patients over the course of my career, maybe more. I've seen real psychosis, schizophrenia, dissociative disorders, everything that's in the textbooks, and a few things that aren't. I don't believe in the supernatural. I didn't. Until March of 2019. A patient came to me on referral from a colleague. Daniel Carver, an engineer, worked at a small firm outside Denver, drove the same car for 10 years, the kind of unremarkable life that raises zero red flags. 40 years old, married, 2 kids. He looked like an ordinary man, neatly dressed, spoke calmly, even when describing the things that frightened him. His complaints were standard. Insomnia, anxiety, the feeling of being watched. My colleague had diagnosed an anxiety disorder and prescribed mild sedatives. Daniel came to me because the medication wasn't helping. The first session was nothing out of the ordinary. He was reserved, spoke clearly, logically, no signs of psychosis. Just a tired man with a stressful job and a feeling that something was off. I asked, off how? He thought about it for a moment, then said, I remember things that never happened. I made a note. Standard complaint with chronic stress. The brain starts blurring real memories with imagined ones. I explained that to him. He nodded, but then he added, the problem is, other people remember them too. The second session was a week later. He came in with a folder. Inside, printouts, photographs, some handwritten notes. He set it on the table between us and said, I want you to look at this before I say anything. Just look and tell me what you see. I looked. The photographs were old, 80s, maybe early 90s. People in them I didn't recognize. Family snapshots, a picnic, some kind of celebration, ordinary photos. I said, I see some old family photographs. He nodded. Then he pulled out one photo and set it apart from the rest. And this one? In the photo, a group of people standing outside some house. Looked like summer. Everyone smiling. Standing in the center was Daniel. Younger, around 25. But unmistakably him. I said, that's you, younger. He shook his head. I'm 40 now. This photograph was taken in 1987. I would have been 8 years old. But this is me, as an adult, and I don't remember this day. I don't remember these people. I don't remember this place. I sat there silent for a long time, staring at the photo. Not because I couldn't come up with an explanation, but because the longer I looked, the more details seemed wrong. The clothing on the people around him matched the 80s. So did the quality of the photograph. But Daniel's face was sharp, clean, with none of the grain or yellowing of old film, as if it had been digitally pasted in. Even though the photo itself felt real to the touch, with the same gloss and wear as the rest of it. This could have been faked, I said. Modern software can insert a face into an old photo well enough that it's impossible to tell by eye. Daniel shook his head. I thought about that. I took one of the photos to a digital forensics expert in Boulder. He told me the photograph was completely authentic. The paper, the chemical composition of the emulsion, everything matched the era. No trace of digital tampering whatsoever. He said it outright. If this is fake, it was made with technology that doesn't exist yet. I found 17 more photos like this one, he went on. Different years, different cities, different people in each one. But I'm in every single one, as an adult, in years before I was even born or when I was still a child. A pause. And in every single photograph, I'm looking straight into the camera. He didn't show up for the third session. I called. No answer. I texted. Never read. I reached out to the colleague who'd referred him to me. He told me he couldn't reach Daniel either, and that Daniel's wife had called him. Daniel never came home after our last session. I reported it to the police. They took a statement. 2 weeks later, an unknown number called me. Daniel. His voice was calm, almost detached. "I found the answer," he said. "Where are you?" I asked. "They're looking for you, your wife." "Listen," he cut in. "Just listen. This matters." I went quiet. "Those photographs, I figured out what they mean. I haven't traveled through time. I'm not insane. It's simpler than that, and worse at the same time." "What do you mean?" "Someone lived my life before me, not someone who looks like me. Me. Same body, same face, and he left traces behind. The photographs aren't an anomaly, they're a warning." "Daniel." "I'm the third one," he said quietly. "I found documents. 2 people before me figured out the same thing. Both of them disappeared. I thought I could outrun it if I learned the truth. But the truth is..." The call cut off. I called back. The number didn't exist. I'm still in practice. Still seeing P. My name is Paul Hammond. I'm 47 years old. For 22 years, I proofread the dead. And one night, I came across a dead man who hadn't gotten around to dying yet. I'm the overnight copy editor at the Ashford Courier, a small daily paper in northern Ohio, the kind that still prints on actual paper because half the town is elderly people who can't imagine a morning without a newspaper in their hands. My shift runs 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. I proof everything that goes to press the next day: local news, sports, announcements, and the obituaries. The obituaries get their own page, and I treat them differently from everything else. Funeral homes and families send them in. A name, the dates, a few warm lines about a life. My job is to make sure there isn't a single mistake. Name capitalized correctly, date right. Because a typo in tomorrow's horoscope gets forgotten. But an obituary is the last record of a person's existence on this earth. You don't get to mess that up. For 22 years, I got it right every single time. I inherited this desk from Ed Bishop, the previous night editor, who'd worked here nearly 30 years, and one day simply didn't show up for his shift. Didn't quit, didn't say goodbye. Just disappeared from town. I didn't give it much thought at the time. People in this business burn out and vanish. Then came that October night. 2 a.m. I was proofing the obituary page. 3 that day. 2 were ordinary, a retired schoolteacher, a veteran. The third was a man named Walter Crow, 68. A few lines: loved fishing, survived by 2 children. Same as always, except for the date of death. October 17th. I looked up at the calendar on the wall above my desk. It was the 14th, 2 a.m. The man was supposed to die in 3 days. I told myself it was a typo. Someone at the funeral home had transposed the numbers. It happens once every few years. I opened the system to fix it, but since I didn't know the correct date, I simply pulled the obituary from the next day's edition and left myself a note. Call in the morning to clarify. Around 2:30, I opened the page again just to confirm I'd removed it. Walter Crow's obituary was there. October 17th, I pulled it a second time. Watched the line disappear from the screen. Refreshed the page. It came back. I sat there working on it until morning. I manually extracted it from the file, bypassed the system entirely, laid out the page without it, and personally walked it through to press. The paper ran clean. I went home and nearly convinced myself it had been nothing but a glitch in an old piece of software. In the morning, I called the Ashford Funeral Home, asked about Walter Crowe. The woman on the other end searched for a while, then said they had no record of him. Nobody by that name had come through their doors. Not that week, not that month. On October 17th, Walter Crowe died. Heart attack. In his own garage, working on a boat motor, 68 years old. The next day, his real obituary arrived at the paper, submitted by the family through normal channels. The same 2 lines about fishing, the same 2 children. I checked it against my note, word for word. After that, I started paying attention. Not every night, but often. One extra obituary would appear among the real ones, a name that didn't exist anywhere in the system. A date of death, always exactly 3 days past the current date. I started writing them down in a notebook, quietly, telling no one, and waiting. They came true. Every single one. An accident on Route 30. A woman who fell down her own staircase. A young man who drowned at the lake outside town. I read their names 3 days before the rest of the city ever heard them. I knew before the police, before their families, before the dead themselves. I tested myself. I thought, maybe I'm losing it. Maybe I'm fitting my memory to the facts the way people do when they want to believe in omens. So I started photographing my screen, writing down the name, the date, and the exact time I first saw it. Over 2 months, I had 11 entries. 11 obituaries that had no source in the system. 11 real deaths on the 3rd day exactly for those exact people. I stopped sleeping properly because I understood that every night a list of the people who would die was being laid out in front of me, and I was the only person in this city who saw it in advance, and I wasn't doing anything about it. Just proofing for typos and moving it to the trash like any other piece of copy. So I decided to step in. Her name was Hannah Reed, 26 years old. Her obituary appeared on a Thursday. She would die on Sunday in an accident. I found her within half a day. In a town this small, that's not difficult. A cashier at the pharmacy on Main Street. Alive, smiling, counting change for someone and laughing about something with a coworker. I couldn't just walk up and say it. That'd have locked me up and someone would be writing my own obituary. So I did it differently. I left an anonymous note on her car. Don't get behind the wheel this Sunday. Please, just trust me. That Sunday, Hannah Reed stayed home. I checked. She's still alive. For a few hours, I felt like I'd finally done something right. Like all of this horror had at least some kind of purpose. That same night, a new obituary appeared in the system. A name I didn't recognize. A man 50 years old. And the date of death? Not 3 days away. The next day. He died the following morning. In the same accident. On the same curve of road where Hannah was supposed to die. A stranger who just happened to be driving that route at the wrong time. And that's when I understood the worst of it. The number doesn't change. I didn't save Hannah. I just chose who would die in her place. I didn't know that man. I didn't know if he had children, if someone was waiting for him at home that evening. I pulled his name out of the dark and put it where Hannah's had been, without even realizing I was doing it. And the worst part? I still don't know if I would have done it differently if I had known. Hannah is alive. Someone else isn't. And between those two facts, there I stand, with my editing pencil. I never stepped in again. Not once. But I couldn't sleep at all anymore. I started coming in early and staying late, not for the work, but because at home, in the silence, I could hear myself mentally running through names that no one in this city had started mourning yet. One night, I yanked open the bottom drawer of the desk, the one that always stuck. Underneath some old forms, there was a thick notebook, not mine, Ed Bishop's handwriting, dates, names, years and years of them, written in neat small letters. Always 3 days out. Ed had been doing the same thing I was doing. For over 20 years, he'd kept this list and said nothing to anyone. I read the last pages without breathing. Near the end, the handwriting got ragged and uneven, and on the very last page, there was a single line, circled twice. When you see your own name, don't fix it. Just go. Beneath it, one more line in different ink, like it had been added much later. Edward Bishop. I went. I sat there for a long time holding that notebook. Now I knew where the man whose desk I'd taken had gone. He hadn't disappeared. He'd run. 2 weeks later, I saw mine. 2 in the morning, the obituary page. Among the regular names, one extra. Paul Hammond, 47, night editor. Survived by years of flawless work. Date of death, 3 days away. My hand reached for the cursor on its own. 22 years of clean reflex. You see an error, you fix it. The cursor blinked on the date, waiting, and I thought of Ed's line, "Don't fix it. Just go." I didn't fix it. I shut off the monitor, picked up my jacket, walked out of the newsroom at 2:15 in the morning, and never went back. I didn't even take my things. I called the next day and said I was quitting. I didn't explain why. The date came and went. I didn't die. A year went by. I'm still here. But I took one thing with me that night. A galley proof. A printout of that page with my name on it. I don't know why. I suppose as evidence to myself that I hadn't lost my mind. I keep it in a drawer at home, and every now and then I take it out and look at it. The obituary is still there. Paul Hammond, 47. Same lines. Only the date changes. Every time I look, there's a different number. And it's always exactly 3 days from today. Like it's just waiting for me to sit down at some desk again. One more thing. Last week, I bought a copy of the Ashford Courier, just on impulse from a vending machine at a gas station. I opened it to the obituary page. Old habit. You can't outrun it. There's a new night editor now. I know because his name appeared at the bottom of one of the pieces, and right next to it, in the obituary column, that same name appeared again. Date of death, 3 days away. He doesn't know yet what it means, but he will, at 2 in the morning, like all of us did. My name is Eric Holloway. I'm 29 years old, and after that night, I don't turn on the radio when I'm driving alone in the dark anymore. 3 years ago, I got a job as a late-night host at a small AM station in a little town in upstate New York. Population around 3,000. One gas station, one traffic light that just blinked yellow into the emptiness after 11 p.m. The job was simple. Midnight to 5 a.m., I'd sit in a tiny studio on the second floor, spin old records, read the weather forecast once an hour, and take the occasional call from the handful of people who weren't asleep. Long-haul truckers, a nurse coming off her shift, an old man named Walt who called every single night asking for the same song about a train. Said it made it easier not to think about his wife who was gone. I actually liked it. The quiet, the hum of the equipment, the red on-air light falling across my hands. The first 2 weeks went by without a hitch. Then came that call. 2:47 in the morning. I remember exactly because I'd just looked at the clock. A line blinked. I put on my headphones and hit the button. Night Air, you're live. Silence. Not empty silence. Someone was breathing, slow and even. Then a voice. Male, flat, no inflection at all. The way someone sounds when they're reading the grocery list. There's a blue pickup sitting at the corner of Maple and 8th right now. Engine running. Man inside. He's crying. And they hung up. I laughed it off. Figured. Drunk somebody or a bored teenager. In towns like this, prank calls are practically a sport. But at 3 a.m., I went out on the fire escape to smoke. And from there, through 2 blocks of darkness, I saw it. Blue pickup at the corner of Maple and 8th. Engine running, I could see the white exhaust drifting up in the cold air. And a man sitting in the cab, completely still. I told myself it was a coincidence. Someone really was parked there, and the caller had just seen him too and decided to mess with me. The following night, the voice called again. 2:47. Mrs. Kowalski on Cherry Lane just dropped a glass in her kitchen, it said, same flat tone. She cut her foot on the glass. She's looking for a towel right now, left side of the sink. Look, I said. I don't know who this is, but left side of the sink, the voice repeated. Click. I didn't know any Mrs. Kowalski, but in the morning, handing off to the day host, I asked if someone by that name lived in town. He nodded. Cherry Lane, the house with the green shutters. Lives alone. I made some offhand joke about glass breaking in the night. He gave me an odd look and said she'd actually called the station that morning, complaining that she'd cut her foot and nearly called an ambulance. I felt a shaking start somewhere deep inside me. On the 3rd night, I disconnected the phone line, physically pulled the cable out of the jack, let whatever it was ring into nothing. At 2:47, a line blinked on the board, the same line I'd disconnected. I sat there watching that little light for about 5 minutes without moving. Then, with some kind of borrowed obedience that didn't feel like my own, I put on my headphones. You pulled the cable, Eric, the voice said. I had never given my name on air. I was just your late-night host. How do you know my name? I whispered. I know a lot of things. You're wearing a gray hoodie right now. You just push back from the board. Your hands are cold. There's a bulb flickering in the corner of the studio that you've been meaning to replace. I looked over. The bulb was flickering. I got up and went to the window. Maybe he was outside on the street below, looking up at me through the glass. Nothing. A streetlight, an empty parking lot, darkness. Not a soul anywhere. Where are you? I said. Closer than you think, said the voice, and then for the first time, with a different quality to it, almost soft. You're sitting in my chair. Dial tone. I sat in that studio, and for the first time in 2 weeks, the silence itself scared me. Not the voice, the space between calls, the hum of the amplifier, the quiet click of a relay, the wind touching the metal siding of the building, and the building answering with a long, low moan, almost human. I hadn't heard any of that before. Now I heard everything, like someone had removed the cotton that had been packed into my ears and left me bare inside the sound. I didn't sleep until morning. and when the sun came up, I went down to the archive room on the first floor. A small back room where the station kept old paperwork. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew I needed to understand whose chair this had been before mine. I found it in a folder of old payroll records. The night host who'd worked here before me. His name was Raymond Fall, 8 years on the job. In the column for reason of departure, there was a single word, deceased. I found the local paper on microfiche. The headline was small on the back page. Raymond Fall, 51, died of a heart attack at his workstation, at the wheel of the broadcast, in the middle of the night. The morning crew found him sitting in his headphones, the microphone still live, pushing nothing but static into an empty signal. Time of death, according to the coroner, approximately 2:47 a.m. I wanted to quit that same day, but I didn't. I still don't know why. I think now I couldn't anymore. Something in those calls had sunk into me like a hook beneath the skin. That night I came in for my shift with a tape recorder. Cheap, cassette, bought at the gas station. I wanted a recording. Proof I wasn't losing my mind. At 2:47 the line blinked. Tonight I'm going to tell you something important, Raymond's voice said. Listen carefully because I'm only going to say this once. At 3:17, out on the highway past town, the curve by the old mill, a truck is going to go off the road. The driver will fall asleep. He's heading this way right now. His name is Dale. Why are you telling me this? I said. Because you can stop it. Go on air. Say into the microphone, Dale, wake up. He listens to this station. He always listens at night. He'll hear you. And then the voice said something that made me go cold in a way I hadn't felt before. Nobody stopped me. That morning, someone could have gone on air and said my name. Nobody did. I sat here alone and felt it coming and called into the microphone, and there was no one on the other side and listening. I sat there staring at the microphone, at the clock, 3:14, and I didn't know. Believe it or not, it could have been true. It could have been a dead man's game wanting me to say a stranger's name into the night air. For what reason, I didn't understand. To make me part of something? To get me to hand over my voice? The way you hand someone a key to your door? 3:15. I thought about the blue pickup that had really been there, about the glass that broke to the left of the sink, about everything that had come true, and about the fact that if I was wrong, I'd just say something strange into an empty night and nobody would hear it. But if I wasn't, somewhere out on a dark highway, a man was falling asleep. 3:16. My hand moved toward the fader on its own. The headphones were so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat, and it seemed to me like it was beating in time with the flickering of that bulb in the corner. I leaned toward the microphone. The red on-air light fell across my hands, and I said, not knowing whether I was doing something good or becoming something else. I said, Dale, if you can hear me, wake up. Silence on the air, the hum of the equipment, the bulb blinking in the corner. The next day I found out that at the curve by the old mill, at 3:17 in the morning, a truck had gone off the road. The driver, a local man named Dale Marsh, told the police something strange. He'd been falling asleep at the wheel. And in that last second, the radio in his cab said his name. He jerked awake, yanked the wheel, and went into the ditch instead of crossing into oncoming traffic. Alive. A few bruises and a broken headlight. I played back my cassette that morning. Everything had recorded: my weather, the songs, the pause at 2:47. But where the voice should have started, there was only silence, and my own breathing getting heavier and heavier as I talked into empty air. I rewound that section 10 times. I'd ask a question, and there was a pause on the tape. A long pause where I waited for an answer from someone who wasn't there on the recording at all. I quit a week later. 3 years have passed since then. I still don't know who that voice was. Whether Raymond Fall really did stay in that studio, on that frequency, trying to do for a stranger what nobody had done for him, or whether my brain, worn down by sleeplessness and solitude, had stitched together a string of coincidences into something with a face and a name. I only know one thing. Somewhere in this world, there's a man named Dale who didn't die that night. And every time I drive past an old radio tower outside some small town in the middle of nowhere and see the red light blinking at the top in the darkness, I think about how many other voices are talking right now into empty air, hoping that someone on the other side is still awake and listening.